I would say Salishan is definitely, it's a community of transition. This is still a strong community. You know, we're still a community that believe in our families, that believe in the work that we do as far as living here. This is a community of resilience.
Michael Mirra used to say that blood, sweat, tears, and marriages were shed over this development. And there have been so many people that have dedicated so much to contributing to the success of the redevelopment and now the vital neighborhood that it is. There are lots of stories. It was not always easy.
Housing is related to almost every other civic interest. It's hard to talk, for example, about education without asking if the children are adequately housed, child welfare and housing, wage progression, economic development, transportation policy and housing, mental health, physical health and housing, justice and racial justice. Developing New Salishan was ambitious. It was the largest redevelopment of its kind west of the Mississippi River. THA tore down and tore up 200 urban acres in a $300 million redevelopment that took everything THA had. The history of Salishan really began with the attack on Pearl Harbor. When that particular war started for this country, the federal government realized two things: that a lot of people were headed to the Pacific Northwest to build the ships and planes that won that war. And when they got here, they would make a housing shortage a lot worse. In response, the federal government, as an emergency wartime measure, built Salishan to house war workers and their families. After the war, the federal government gave those communities to the local housing authorities for them to own and manage as public housing. When it was given to the Tacoma Housing Authority, it was one of the few communities in Tacoma that welcomed black families. Salishan to this day is one of the region's most racially and ethnically and linguistically diverse communities. Salishan, by the 1990s, was worn out. It wasn't built to be permanent. During the war, it was built to be temporary housing. So the people who designed it would probably have been surprised to know that it lasted so long.
The idea of the Salishan redevelopment, it started in the year 2000, was to create a vibrant mixed income, mixed ethnic community where market rate houses existed next to affordable houses, existed next to houses that were owned and subsidized by the housing authority. The goal was also to move in various types of community assets like the Family Investment Center, which allowed a place for people to gather in neighborhood groups. Of course, there's now the community health center that's there. There are a variety of other community-based assets that over the years have located in Salishan to provide not just assistance for the residents of Salishan, but the greater east side of Tacoma as well. And obviously the middle school, First Creek, was built subsequent to Salishan being completed. We think that it spurred a lot of redevelopment and economic growth, not just in the boundaries of Salishan itself, but throughout the neighborhood and that part of town.
I went to a Stewart Junior High, which was a feeder school for Lincoln. And when I got to Lincoln, there were kids there from McElvey. And McElvey was, at that time, the school for the kids in the Salishan area. And so got to be friends with a number of those kids, and we'd find a way to meet, and I'd visit them. And then the next step was I took driver's ed my junior year at Lincoln, and the driver's ed instructor would take us out at the end of East 48th Street, which was the old Salishan that was the first to be demolished back in the 50s, and what was still left was the street and sidewalks. So we'd go there and practice driving in the old Salishan neighborhood. The electrical system that was originally installed in the 40s was pretty primitive. Wire material wasn't readily available due to the war. And so I remember early on with the new Salishan, talking with all of the people that were going to be involved in that in terms of wanting to make sure that the new underground system that Tacoma Power would operate and maintain, that it was put in a way that was compatible with how they wanted the new Salishan to look. Because I was at Tacoma Power for 27 years and went from being an entry-level engineer to being head of Tacoma Power, got involved in all kinds of different projects that were necessary for the community, but took some money. And so we had this wonderful congressman named Norm Dix that could get the Tacoma community money.
The city of Tacoma came to me and asked for help on seeing if we could get a Hope 6 grant to do a renewal project. One of the other things that we were involved in was the community health care clinics. And we have a very nice community health care clinic in Salishan. It was just a great way to help your local community. And that's why I got on the Appropriations Committee in the first place, was so I could be in a position to help projects like Salishan.
Applying for the Hope 6 grant was a team of individuals. I mean, working lots of hours, lots of nights, to get it. And I remember once the grant was written internally, we took the binder and we hand delivered it to HUD. I mean, that was the big moment. And then we did the Hail Mary. In July 15, 2000, I received a call from Secretary Mario Cuomo at the time and said, "Congratulations, you got the Hope 6 grant." And I said, "Oh my God, now what?"
There was definitely community concerns about what was going to happen, a lot of concerns in any upheavals of transitions. But beyond that, there wasn't a belief that it was going to be a great investment for the neighborhood. Now, I was looking at the fact that they were doing market rate housing along with public housing and thinking, why would that not be good? Because we certainly didn't have any new housing stock in the East Side otherwise, right? In the course of other things that I did and through neighborhood council, I had the opportunity to meet Michael Mirra. If you look around Salishan, he was the first one to say, okay, there's 10 parks in here, everybody should have access to a park. Well, guess what? The city and parks now agree, and that's part of our long-term planning.
Now, I didn't fully realize just what a big deal this was, I don't think, until June of 2007. And I was attending a Conference of Mayors meeting in California. I had just finished chairing a panel discussion and was leaving the conference room. And a staff member came up, and I remember this day, it was June 24th, as a matter of fact, 2007. And a staff person came up and said, "Mayor, you made the front page of the New York Times. Tacoma made the front page." And he saw this worried look on my face, and he said, "No, Mayor, it's good news. It's about the Hope 6 program, New Salishan, in Tacoma." And so I dashed off to the newsstand there in the hotel and got a copy of the New York Times, and there it was, front page, the story of New Salishan and the success here in Tacoma. And I thought to myself, we really reached the gold standard when it comes to planned communities of affordable housing. But actually, we exceeded the gold standard, because shortly thereafter, phase 3 of the neighborhoods actually reached the platinum LEED certification. And LEED means leadership in energy and environmental design. And it's a way in which you evaluate how green and how sustainable homes are. And platinum is the highest rating you can achieve. It's very rarely attained, but an entire neighborhood here in Salishan reached that attainment. So it's more than just the gold standard. You could say it was the platinum standard. Nothing quite like it anywhere west of the Mississippi, as it turns out. So something to really be proud of here in Tacoma. And I mentioned to Michael Mirra the miracle of Salishan, and he said, you know, he said, Mayor, it's not really a miracle because it was well planned and thought out, and people worked hard to make it come about. So I guess a better word describing Salishan is it's transformative. And I put it right up there with Tacoma's greatest achievements, whether it be the cleanup of Commencement Bay and the Foss Waterway, the four-year campus at the University of Washington, the museums, the cleanup of the Asarco site. All those are great achievements, but I put New Salishan and what we've achieved here is right at the top. I couldn't be prouder.
But you know, my political career started in Salishan. I was a 5th grade representative, and then I was an 8th grade representative, one at Lister and at McElvey at the time. So this is where it all began. I was born in Tacoma, so we grew up here, but several years here. Then we moved to Arizona for a while, and we came back, and my stepdad never showed up. So basically what happened was my mother ended up raising 4 kids on her own. And we lost the trailer we lived in and everything. And Salishan, in my mind, and I've mentioned this many times over the years, was a lifesaver for my mother, as I mentioned earlier. I don't know what she would have done if there wasn't a place where she could have got a reduced rent. It was a little different once you got outside, and I went to Galt. And then, to be honest, you didn't want people to know you lived in Salishan because it was a housing project. And years later, when I was, I think I might have been a senator at the time, I went to speak to some kids, and I asked this one young lady, I says, well, where do you live? And she says, well, I live over on something like the east side or something, or by Portland. I said, oh, do you live in Salishan? And she looks and she goes, yeah. I said, well, I lived there. And then she perked up because it was okay to live there. See, but now you don't have that stigma, you know, because of whoever created this, whoever came up with this concept, and the development of it did a wonderful job of making it a neighborhood.
You know, taking people from being homeless to providing a roof over their head is a big deal, a very rewarding deal as well. And it's something that I think about all the time because I grew up in public housing myself in Lowell with a mother, father, 6 brothers and sisters, right? We were poor, didn't really know it. And so I could relate, right? I could relate to the kids and to the parents that were there because they were like many of my relatives that came from the Middle East to this country and acclimated. I saw how that unfolded as a child and as a kid and later as an adult, and I saw the same positive things happening here. Anybody that works in public housing, you've got to have a positive culture, right, and a positive response to people because people's lives are difficult. It's our jobs to engage them and you know, provide good, safe, decent, and sanitary housing, and to provide opportunities. And with respect to Walsh Construction, HUD has what they call the Section 3 program, which provided opportunities and jobs for people. And I know that, you know, many residents were hired as a result of that.
You know, it's such an improvement to the East Tacoma region to, you know, take out all the worn out housing that had been there since the 40s and create a wonderful modern new neighborhood that so many families enjoy. One thing that impressed me most about working with Tacoma Housing Authority was their really care and concern for their clients, their residents. And I've had the opportunity to work with a number of housing authorities in different communities, and to me, their commitment is the most genuine and really heartfelt.
I was the executive director of a Korean Women's Association for a very long time, and we actually, under my leadership, we built senior low-income housing there, right on 44th. That's the clientele that we serve. There's so many Asia Pacific people in Salishan, living in Salishan, have grown up in Salishan. And the greatest thing about Salishan, it's very diverse. So it's a melting pot there, and therefore lots of different love, different cultures, you know, different languages. It's beautiful.
The cool part about it is that when they come out, you know, we have the Samoan kids, the black kids, white kids, you know, we have, you know, the Asian kids, you know, and they all coming out and they're just playing, you know, and it's fun to see it and it's exciting to see it that, hey, listen, this is the makeup of our world. You know, it's people of different backgrounds, different cultures, but being able to come together, you know, we need to be more childlike as adults. You know, it's like they don't care about none of the stuff we be on. They're like, hey, you got a ball, let's play.
I think that this community represents what a real community should look like, with the many languages and the many cultures, and they all live together, work together, and they get the kind of support system here for it to be successful. Regardless of their language or their needs, there's a program to enhance them. Affiliation with Salishan began in 1960 when I was serving as an educator at Galt Junior High. And at that time, the students who lived in Salishan all came to Galt. And then when I went to Lincoln High School, the same population. So I've had a long association with Salishan. And I served for 9.5 years with the Tacoma Housing Authority. I just want the public to know that this is a wonderful place. It's a safe place, and it's an opportunity for people to get an education. And they get the support of a medical facility here, thanks to the Tacoma Health community. They get the support of professional services through THA, whether it's legal or whether it's educational.
Originally came here, I was actually homeless. Came out of the Salvation Army, heard about Salishan, and I was actually new to the state. So I didn't know a whole lot about anything. So once I was at the shelter, they told us about Salishan, that this was an opportunity for us to go into permanent housing. During that time, I was actually 7 months pregnant, had 3 kids, was married at the time. And so when I heard of the opportunity to be able to come to Salishan, I came here. And the case managers began to tell me about all the different programs that could be able to help families to be able to stand and be self-sufficient again. And I remember sitting in this office particularly, and I was crying because I could not believe that there were so many opportunities to help people to be a better person. From the beginning, coming in, just with a high school diploma, I was able to get my associate's degree while I was here in Salishan, and then I got my bachelor's degree. Then I got my CDP certification certificate for, you know, chemical dependency. I would have never been able to do a lot of those things if I had not had the support of THA or Salishan. And that's why I'm such an advocate, because I know that the things that have been put in place, that they do work, because I'm a living witness, you know, where I was able to do all of these things. You know, I was able to co-author a book. Never would have been able to do that if I had to worry about constantly, you know, making sure that I don't get kicked out of my house, or, you know what I mean? You know, so that's how I changed, is that I was able to accomplish a lot of goals that I set for myself from the beginning until now.
When you have people that have a sense of ownership, that feel belonging and attachment to their neighborhood, then suddenly they have something to protect. You know, if it's allowed to run down, become dilapidated, poorly maintained, ignored, then people feel ignored. People feel not valued. So we place value on the assets that we consider to be valuable, and I think that rises everybody up.
I would want people to know the history, because the history really is the foundation of what Salishan is today. And there were certainly ups and downs. I mean, they threw up homes that looked like barracks and were only meant to be there a short time. people had kind of a rough time in them because they were meant to be temporary housing. So if you didn't have a refrigerator, you had an ice box, you didn't have air conditioning, you didn't have an electric clothes dryer, all that sort of thing. And so those people persevered over the years in difficult situations, and yet it really didn't hold them back. They were able to persevere. So you kind of take that, and that uplifting spirit I talked about, where neighbor helping neighbor, you take that still spirit to this day. You look at the rich history and community spirit of that neighborhood. And as I said before, it's very impressive, and that's what I would recognize about that community, overcoming challenges and persevering and providing a wonderful community today.
So much thanks goes back to those who had the vision for this, and for Michael Mirra for putting it in place. You know, when you walk around here, you feel it's a sense of beauty and pride. People are happy to live here. We've got health centers, we've got community centers that help bring this together. But most of all, you got a sense of place unlike nowhere else in the city of Tacoma. And I am just so thankful to Michael Mirra and everyone else who helped put this on the map and make it the nationally recognized model that it is. I think everyone deserves a right to have affordable housing. Everyone deserves a right for a place to live. One of the beautiful things about Salishan, when we look at the 100+ acres that we have here, is you can walk around and it's not apparently clear what might be a homeowner property and what might be a rental property. That we set a standard that says housing should be available to all, and the same quality of housing should be available to all.
It taught us a lot about how to do real estate development inside a social justice mission. I spent 19 years at the Tacoma Housing Authority, 17 of them as executive director, 2 of them as general counsel, and all of those years were focused in important ways on Salishan. So watching it happen and grow and consummate was enormously meaningful.